Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome. The time has just gone 7:45. So nice to see so many familiar faces busy filling the room. And maybe we can ask everyone just to turn on their cameras because it's been so long since I've seen you all in shul. It would be really nice to see if you've aged gracefully over the last 5.5, 6 months since we were all in shul together. Rabbi Chazdan, you looking younger than I've seen you in a long time.
It's just the photogenic nature.
Is that because on Zoom there's an enhance my appearance section which gives you digital Botox?
Absolutely. It's wonderful to see you, wonderful to see you, Tamir. I'm just delighted that you're with us.
So a huge welcome to everyone. Tamir, where in the world are you joining us from?
I'm in Jerusalem, Israel. On my porch, 20 minutes away from the Kotel, 25-minute walk away from the Kotel, thinking about everybody.
I believe it's been boiling in Jerusalem the last few days.
It's very hot, but I love it. I love the heat, so I'm enjoying it.
Fantastic. Well, looking at all the familiar faces and names around, nice to see you all. A big welcome on behalf of the Great Park Shul. Fantastic to see you all there. Iti, I believe you're on controls this evening, making sure that everything is going to run smoothly. So with that, let us, Tamir, I said to you just before we went live, basketball is a great mystery to all the South Africans. The only people who understand it here are all the daughter and sons-in-law of Rabbi Chazdan, because they're all Americans. And maybe Fabi Chazdan as well, but they're probably the only people who've ever actually seen a basketball game. So with that, Iti, show us a pre-reel, just so we get a sense and an understanding of what we're going to be talking about tonight.
Whatever happened to Tamir Goodman?
Well, see, Tamir Goodman was only a junior in high school when we did that story last year.
University of Maryland has been a buzz recently with that gentleman right there, Tamir Goodman.
Tamir averages better than 31 points a game, 8 assists, and 7 rebounds.
Tamir, who stands 6 feet 3 inches tall, is one of the best high school guards in the country. And he's an Orthodox Jew.
Goodman made a non-binding commitment to accept a scholarship to the University of Maryland. But due to a series of events, he withdrew that commitment in September of last year and later signed a letter of intent to play at Towson University. What followed were questions about everything from Tamir's skills, whether or not he had a future playing Division I basketball at all.
Because people are saying, well, maybe he's not as good as everybody made him out to be. This guy is very special.
I realized God gave me this talent, and if I use it in the wrong way, I realized he could take it away from me just as fast as he gave it to me.
Hi, I'm Tamir Goodman.
So Tamir, a huge welcome to you. Fantastic to see you this evening. Let's in fact pin Tamir up so everyone can see him. You join us from Jerusalem this evening. You've got a remarkable and fascinating story, and we want to start right in the beginning. So first of all, explain to us before we even begin, how big is basketball in the United States?
Basketball in the United States is very, very big. It's loved by millions of people. But I grew up in Baltimore, Maryland, and Baltimore is known for it's a very basketball specific community. Many top players from around the world came out of Baltimore. So I was very, very blessed that I grew up in the perfect community where I could chase my dreams, but at the same time, it was a very strong Jewish community. So I was able to combine the Judaism and basketball even from a very young age.
But now you grew up, am I allowed to use the words properly from?
Yeah, I grew up in an observant Jewish home. A very, very proud Jewish home, a home that was full of chesed and kiddush Hashem, trying to sanctify Hashem. That's what our parents taught us at a very young age. You could do anything in this world that you want to do, but you have to try to do it for Hashem, and you have to try to better the world through whatever it is that you're trying to do. And when I was about 8 or 9 years old, I was shooting in our backyard, and I already loved the game so much. And our neighbor's lawn was lower than our lawn. So if we missed a shot, the ball would hit the rim and would go down to our neighbor's lawn, and I'd have to chase the ball and bring it back to our lawn. And if I made the shot, it usually stayed on our lawn. But one time I missed a shot and the ball bounced to our neighbor's lawn. Instead of just chasing the ball like I always would, I just stopped for 1 second on our court, and I looked at my hands, and I just had this vision, and I thought to myself, I was looking at my hands, wouldn't it be amazing if I could show the world that I could reach the highest levels of basketball without playing on Shabbos? And that was a goal that I set for myself at a young age on that court.
So let's talk about this idea of Shabbos. Why was Shabbos so important to you?
Shabbos was so important to me because I grew up in an observant Jewish home. My Savta of blessed memory, who recently passed away, she was a Holocaust survivor. She lived with us 6 months out of the year. And I grew up hearing about the sacrifices that the Jewish people made and the Holocaust survivors made for Shabbos. And even though I loved the game so much, I used to think to myself as a child, like, I know that Holocaust survivors came over to America and they'd have to get a new job every Sunday because they wouldn't be willing to work on Shabbos, even though they had no money and they had nothing really going for them. And they risked everything for Shabbos. It wouldn't feel right for me to play on Shabbos because basketball at the end of the day is a game. And I grew up in such an atmosphere where Shabbos was a blessing. It was beautiful. It was something that we really embraced. And I one time heard a story about an old chassid named Mendel Futterfass, and they said that he was in the labor camps. And even though he was in the labor camps, he never had to work on Shabbos. And the prisoners asked him, and they said, how is it that you don't have to work on Shabbos and we need to work on Shabbos? And he said, well, if you prove yourself during the 6 days of the week, they're more likely to leave you alone on Shabbos. So I applied that to basketball. I said, I'm going to do every single thing I can during the 6 days of the week to be the best player, to work harder than any other player. And hopefully if I do that, when I get older, the right coach will come and help me. And that's exactly what happened.
So one doesn't usually associate with someone who's grown up in such a religious environment looking to sports as their future career. When you went to go tell your parents for the first time that you thought you would be a professional basketball player, that you could make this work, what was their reaction to you?
Well, the first time that I think my mother really realized that I was very serious, we were playing in the backyard, and my older brothers are older than me. Reuven is 7 years older, Chen is 5 years older. I was playing with them, and they beat me. And we came in the kitchen after the game, and I was crying. I was very upset. And my brother said to my mother, they said, Ima, tell Tamir to just take it easy. Why is he so sad? It's just a game. And I looked at my mother and I said, Ima, with tears in my eyes, this isn't just a game for me. I really, really, really love the game. And to my parents' credit and my mother's credit, even though my mother she still doesn't know anything about basketball really, she knew that I was serious, and they decided that they were going to do everything possible to support my dream. And they never for one moment ever stopped supporting me. And there's no way I would have been able to accomplish that without their help. And we were very lucky. There was a coach that lived next to us, and he trained my older brother, and then he started training me a lot. And he told my parents, he said, even at a very young age, you're not going to have to pay for college for Tamir. He's going to be good enough to get a basketball scholarship. And I worked with this coach very, 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 very hard from 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, all the way up until age 16. When I was 16, I got invited to my first invitational basketball camp, and I played really well there. And those were supposed to be the best players in the world. And when the camp was over, I said, well, if those were supposed to be the best players in the world and I was able to compete with them, Hashem has blessed me just as much as he's blessed them. I'm really going to go after my dream. And by the time I was 17 years old, I was ranked the 25th best basketball player in America.
So you were at school at the time. Suddenly, this dawns upon you. You're in the top 25 in all of America in high school. How does your school react to this?
It was a very big challenge for the school because we had a small yeshiva of only 60 kids in the whole school. No one ever played college basketball in the school's history. And all of a sudden, I got a scholarship to play for the #1 team in the country, University of Maryland. And I agreed. I told my parents, why would I go anywhere else? This is my dream team. But I'm only going to commit on one condition, and that is I can't play on Shabbos. And originally said that they would accommodate me, and my life changed overnight. I had 700 unique media requests in 1 week to find out why I wouldn't play on Shabbos and who I was. And the next game after that, Sports Illustrated came to my house, and they're the #1 most famous sports magazine in the world. And they sent an NBA photographer to see how I shoot. And I was shooting and shooting and shooting and shooting in the backyard, the same court where I initially had this vision looking at my hands. And I stopped the NBA photographer during the photo shoot. And I said, I know you take pictures of a lot of basketball players and that you take a lot of pictures of NBA players, but I'm not a regular basketball player. I'm a Jewish basketball player. And millions of people seeing this magazine, this isn't about me. This is really about the Jewish people. And I'd like to represent that. And he said, how can you do that? Even though it was the afternoon, I took him down to my room and I took out my tefillin again and I put him back on and I took out my siddur and I said, well, this is how I pray. And he took a picture and I was the first person ever to be featured in Sports Illustrated, nicknamed the Jewish Michael Jordan, with my tefillin on when I was only 17 years old, a picture that changed my life forever. But with that picture came even more media attention. And it became such a distraction. It was literally a fire hazard because our gym in the yeshiva could only sit 200 people and there was thousands of people trying to come into the gym. There was reporters trying to sneak in to the classrooms. And I could even remember going to shul once on Friday night and reporters trying to come into the shul. So I grew up with the best family, the best friends, the best community, the best rabbis, the best support system. But there was a lot of challenges at a young age because the media was so relentless.
So, in fact, one of the stories you tell is one of the people who called your home wanting to speak to you was, in fact, the shock jock Howard Stern, and your parents won't allow you to speak to him.
Yeah, there was so much media attention. Oprah called the house, ESPN, NBC, Fox News, you name it. And one of them was Howard Stern. But no, I was never able to speak to him. Jerry Seinfeld did a full skit about me on Saturday Night Live, nicknamed skit about the Jewish Jordan. And there was so much media attention that it was, and I recently spoke to a sports public relation expert, and he said, till today, there may have only been one other basketball player in the history of American sport that had as much media attention as you did at that age. And that's LeBron James.
So it's not like you were the first major Jewish sports person in America, but you were the first from Jewish sports person. And how did that manifest itself? Like, did you wear your kippah when you went out on court? Did you wear your tzitzit? How did people identify you as the Jew or the from Jew?
I always played with my kippah. But I think what really made the biggest noise was as time came closer for me to play at the University of Maryland. You have to understand they were the #1 team in the country. They had 7 players go on to play in the NBA from this team. The coaches told me that even though originally they would accommodate me, they said, based on how we see you as a player and how we see things moving forward, we've decided that if you want to stay and play at Maryland, you could stay and play, but you have to play on Shabbat. You have to play on Shabbos. And right away at that meeting, even though this was the best team and my dream was right in front of me, I handed them back the scholarship. And I said, I love you guys. I appreciate this team very much. But for Jewish people, Shabbos is more important than basketball. And I gave them back the scholarship and they went on to win the national championship. They won the championship. I would have been part of that team. So I think when that happened, it wasn't just the yarmulke or the kippah anymore. It was the stance on Shabbos. And ultimately what led to the biggest miracle in my basketball journey, which was another team calling me up and saying, even though we're not Jewish, we heard about you, we respect you, can we learn more about your religion? And that was Towson University, which ultimately, after coming to my house and going over the Jewish calendar with me, decided that they were going to do everything they could to help me. And they did. They managed to change the entire schedule for me so that it became the first person ever to play Division I basketball without having to play on Shabbos or any Jewish holidays. Now, that was supposed to be impossible. When I was a kid, everyone said it's going to be impossible. You can't reach these levels. They play on Shabbos. There's TV contracts. There's hotel reservations. There's radio contracts. Division I basketball in America, it's almost a religion in itself. Who's going to accommodate you? But thank God they did it, and I was able to live out my dream and show the world you could do it as a proud Jew.
Was it ever a thought in your mind, or was this a non-negotiable? I mean, do you ever think, well, if I compromise just a little bit, life would be so much easier for you? Or was it just not even a thought that crossed your mind?
No, it was never a thought in my mind, especially when it came to Shabbos. And I never viewed Judaism as a hinder of my basketball career. I always felt like Hashem was my coach and the Torah was like my blueprint to help me be the best player that I could be. I felt like Judaism was just helping me because it gave me so much motivation. I didn't play for myself. I played for the Jewish people. So when I was playing really well, I was never satisfied. When I wasn't playing well, I was making mistakes and things weren't good, I was able to jump back on track very quickly because I was always trying to connect to something bigger than just my own ego or my own love for the game. And I think my teammates picked up on that. They wanted to help me. They saw how sincere I was. I could remember my first holiday on campus as a college basketball player was Sukkot. And I had a Muslim roommate. His name was Mohammed Fafana, a basketball player, 6'10". And Friday night, Sukkot, was the beginning of the basketball season. And I had made arrangements. We got a sukkah on campus, and I had the kosher food, and I had everything ready, but there was only one thing I forgot, which was there was no Eruv on this campus. This wasn't particularly in a Jewish area. So there were 17,000 students, basically only one person that was going to eat in the sukkah that night. And I had the kosher food, but there was no Eruv, which means I can't carry my food from the dorm room and eat into the sukkah. And Muhammad saw me looking out the window. My bed was closer to the window. We were on the 15th floor. And he saw how serious I was and how concerned I was. He came over to me and said, Tamir, why do you keep looking out the window? I said, Muhammad, did you see that teepee on the other side of the campus, that little tent? He said, yeah, what is that? I said, it's for Jewish people. I need to eat there tonight, but I'm not allowed to carry my food. I'm stuck. And that's why I seem so distraught. He said, don't worry about it. I'm going to help you out. 6'10" Muslim basketball player. He picked up my kosher food with my bencher and my grape juice and my challah, and he walked all the way over across campus, and he could barely fit into the sukkah, and he put the food on the table of the sukkah for me, and he said, here, Tamir, you don't have to worry about carrying the food. You're all set now. And I think like that was just one of many examples throughout my entire career. Whereas when I tried to show that I was a proud Jew, many times even non-Jewish people would go out of their way to help me serve Hashem as a Jewish basketball player.
So Tamir, let's go back a little to your end of school, because the yeshiva can't accommodate you. They can't accommodate the media attention that they've had. And in fact, you land up in a Christian school to graduate high school. How did that happen?
Correct. Well, it was written up in the papers. The yeshiva asked me to find another school that could accommodate me. The gym was too small. The media, it was just too much of a distraction. And it was in the papers every day, and different schools. We were trying different schools. And then one day I got a phone call from a Christian priest. And he told me that he was a principal of a predominantly African-American Christian school in Washington, D.C., which is only 45 minutes away from our house. And he invited me to come graduate from his school. And I said, thank you so much for the opportunity, but what am I going to do in a Christian school? I'm Jewish. And he explained to me that they had a really good team. They had a gym that could seat 5,000 people. They were more accustomed to dealing with the media. I wouldn't have to take Christian classes. I would be able to study with a rabbi, and on Friday meet with the priest and tell him what Torah I studied throughout the week. And because they were Seventh-day Adventist Christians, they don't play basketball on Shabbos either, which means most Christians celebrate Shabbos on Sunday. Seventh-day Adventists don't celebrate on Sunday. They celebrate when we celebrate, and they don't play basketball on Shabbos. So it worked out perfectly, and I was able to transfer to Tacoma Academy every day with my kippah on and study Torah. And but it was still hard. I couldn't understand, why did Hashem send me to the Christian school? I couldn't understand it. I wanted to graduate with my friends, and soon enough, I found out that going there was a bracha for me, was a blessing for me, because I grew academically, I grew socially, and at the end of the season, when I played at the Christian school, I got invited to one of the most prestigious games in all of America called the Capital Classic, which features the best players in the country. And specifically because I went to the Christian school, I got invited to play in this game because I played well at the Christian school. And not only did I get invited to play in the game, but I won the most valuable player of that game with my yarmulke on against the best players in the country. Until today, I made history in that game, tying Jason Kidd's assist record, one of the greatest players of all time. So looking back, I say, why did Hashem send me to the Christian school? And I believe that personally, it strengthened me, but ultimately Hashem sent me to the Christian school because I was able to make a huge Kiddush Hashem of winning the most valuable player of that game with my kippah on my head.
So the one thing that we as South Africans don't understand is how big college basketball is. You know, no college sport in South Africa would attract thousands of people to it. So walk us through just not only how big basketball is, but how big college basketball is. The fact that ESPN actually televises college basketball. Tens of thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of people a week are filling stadiums in colleges watching college basketball.
Correct. College basketball, you know, there's some football stadiums that hold 110,000 people and they're sold out, right? So there's like football, basketball, it's like this huge industry. And one of the most famous teams that attracts the most amount of fans, and you mentioned ESPN and televised, is Villanova University. It's been a powerhouse for many years. And our third game of the year, my college season, was against Villanova. So you can imagine me as a kid watching Villanova all these years, and all of a sudden, here I am playing against them. Well, the night before the game, I'm feeling very nervous. I hear a knock on the door. So I say to Mohammed, let me see who's at the door. I look through the door and I see it's the head coach. So I say to Mohammed, I'll talk to coach. Coach, what's going on? I open up the door to the hotel room. He says, please step into the hallway. I go to the hallway and he says, Tamir, I have something to tell you. What is it? He says, you're starting tomorrow. You're opening in the game. You have a very, very big position in the game tomorrow. And we're playing against Villanova and the game is on ESPN. Millions of people are going to be watching the game. I said, okay, coach, I'll try my best. And I closed the door and I came into the room and Mohammed said, what was all that about? I said, Mohammed, you won't believe it. Coach says we're playing against Villanova. I'm starting. The game's on ESPN and I don't even know how to play basketball. I'm so nervous. I'm trembling. The next day we get to the arena, even though I couldn't sleep the whole night because I was so nervous. And warming up, the players get there 2 hours before the game. Usually no fans are there. And I can't feel confident. I don't feel the ball. I'm not making the shots in warm-ups. I'm so nervous to play this team. But all of a sudden during warm-ups, I had a miracle. I looked up in the stands and I noticed there was a Jewish lady there next to her son. He was wearing a kippah. And I locked eyes with this Jewish boy before the game. And as I locked eyes with him, he took out a big poster board. He had a bag. He took out his poster board and he took out a marker and he starts writing in Hebrew letters at this world-famous arena at Villanova. He starts writing bet. He starts spelling out the words in Hebrew. Bruchim habayim leTamir Goodman. Welcome to Tamir Goodman. And when I saw the Hebrew letters, I wasn't nervous anymore. I felt right at home. I had a great game. And after the game, my coach comes over to me and says, Tamir, by the way, you just won the starting position for the rest of the year. I was the first freshman to start at Towson in over 11 years. And people say to me, how was that possible? How did you accomplish that? And I say, it wasn't me. It was the Hebrew letters that I saw. Hashem sent that family there that made me feel right at home. And I wasn't nervous anymore. And I was able to play against one of the best teams in the world with great success.
So how did crowds react to you when they would see you were a little gingy kid running onto the court wearing a kippah? Was there ever any anti-Semitism? Did the crowds react warmly to you? Was there any antagonism at all?
So for the most part, things were smooth. There were some incidents that were very hard for me. For example, one time we played in a state where there weren't a lot of Jewish people. And basically the way it works is you fly, you know, and you play a game and then you fly to another state. And, you know, that's how it is when you play college basketball. So one time we landed in this area. And it takes a long time for the guys to get their stuff off the plane, the jerseys and their shoes and the balls and all this basketball equipment. And I was sitting on my cooler of kosher food. My parents would meet me in the middle of the night and restock me with kosher food at the airport, and we'd fly. And so I'm sitting on the cooler of kosher food and I'm thinking to myself, wow, I haven't even seen a Jewish person in so long. I'm feeling so lonely. I'm feeling so sad. What kind of mission am I on here? This is crazy. And one of my teammates comes over to me and he says, hey, Tamir, your people are inside the airport. That's how he said it. Your people are inside the airport. He was trying to say to me, he saw a Jewish person. And I said, listen, there's no Jewish people in this state. I know I'm not in the mood for your jokes. He comes back a second time. He comes back a third time. I said, okay, let me see what's going on. And I go inside the airport. He was right. There was a Chabad rabbi there wearing a long black kapata coat. And I saw the rabbi. I was amazed. He opens up his coat and he takes out in his pocket, a kosher sandwich. It was like Eliyahu Navi. He gave me the sandwich. He gave me a hug and he disappeared. I didn't know where he went, but I was so happy to see the rabbi. He gave me a hug and I needed that rabbi's hug so badly, because when we got to the game, this was such a famous arena, thousands of people there. They started singing a chant about my yarmulke. They were singing, where did number 22 get his hat from? And they were saying, the rabbi, singing the whole game. I didn't say anything to the referee. I didn't say, look up in the stands. I just continued to play my game. But at the end of the game, the coach is like, take a shower. We're getting back on the bus. We're going to go back to the hotel. When I left the arena to get back on the bus, these same fans that were making fun of my kippah the whole night were blocking the entrance of our team bus. And this was very strange. It wasn't like they were near their team's bus that they came to cheer for. We were the opposing team. Why were they there? I said to myself, I don't want anything on these guys. I'm going to try to get on the bus as quickly as possible. But when I tried to get on the bus, they completely blocked the entry, and I was stuck. I was feeling very nervous for a couple of moments and thinking to myself, you guys are making fun of me the whole game. Why are you here now? And the leader that was leading the chants against me and making fun of me the whole night, he says, actually, on behalf of everybody here, and he looked behind him with his hand like this, we want to apologize to you. We want to say sorry, and we also want to congratulate you. We want to let you know that we are so impressed that even though we made fun of you the whole game, you never took that hat off your head. Congratulations. And they shook my hand. And I got back on the bus, and I thought to myself, wow, we lost the game tonight, but maybe we won the game for the Jewish people, because hopefully if there's ever a Jewish player there again, they'll never make that player go through what I went through. They'd have more respect for the Jewish people. And that's more or less how it went in my life. Like, even if they were tough on me, usually at the end, they came to respect me.
Playing basketball with the kippah can't be easy. There must have been times where the kippah went flying all over the place. Tell us about some of those times.
Yeah, there was one time in specific, we were playing against Boston. You're where you studied, actually.
My hometown, yeah.
Your hometown. We were playing against Boston University. And there was a loose ball, which means the ball is rolling on the floor. Nobody has possession of the ball. The ball is there. But in basketball, they say ball is life. You know, the ball is everything. So you have to get possession of the ball. So I dove on the ball, but somebody from another team also dove on the ball. And while we were fighting for the ball, he slammed my head into the floor. And when I got up, they took me over to the team doctor on the sideline, and I noticed that everybody was clapping and applauding. There was a standing ovation in the arena, and I'm thinking to myself, why is there a standing ovation if this guy slammed my head into the floor? What so good? It's not like I made a great shot or something. A couple days later, I watched the game tape. Something very special happened. When they took me over to the doctor, I had such a big cut over my eye. I didn't realize it, but my kippah was still stuck on the court. I was off the court. One of my teammates who wasn't Jewish, his name was Sam, he ran over to where my kippah was. He never saw me without a kippah before. He picked it up in front of thousands of people. He ran off the court to where I was by the team doctor, and he slammed my kippah back on my head. And that's why they gave a standing ovation. They respected so much that Sam went out of his way to help me for my kippah. So I always played with my kippah, and even when it got knocked off or whatever, like this story teaches us, it usually had a happy ending.
You told us a few minutes ago a story that you're sitting at the airport on a cooler bag with kosher food in. Where did your kosher food come from? Did your mother used to deliver kosher food to you?
Yeah, my mother used to deliver kosher food. Like I said earlier, my mother doesn't really know anything about basketball, but her unconditional love and support as a Jewish mother is something that's out of this world. And like I also said, like I grew up with my grandmother. She lived half the year with us and half the year in Israel. And I think my coaches got to understand what it means to have a Jewish mother and a Jewish grandmother by this story. College coaches in America are like seen almost as like untouchable, right? And one time I got to practice, and my coach was really riding me. He was really tough on me. He kept on saying comments like, Tamir, are you going to shoot today? Or is your grandmother going to shoot? Are you going to play hard, or is your grandmother? He kept mentioning my mother and my grandmother, my mother and my grandmother. You know, basketball is so intense. College basketball is so intense. And by the time practice is over, you feel so drained. But I always called home. I called home after practice, and my mother said, no, how was practice? She's Israeli. How was practice? I said, it was good. She said, well, did the coach yell at you? I said, yeah, actually, he was yelling at me more than ever. Why? She says, I don't believe it. I said, why? What happened, Ima? She said, because I called him before practice. Now, you have to understand, I never even knew, my mother knew who my coach was, or let alone called him. And you never call a college coach unless it's an absolute emergency. They're untouchable. And she said, well, I called him and I told him that Safta, Grandma is going back to Israel today, and you were probably going to be a little bit sad that she was going back to Israel today. So I asked him to be a little bit extra sensitive to you. He shouldn't yell at you because I knew you were going to feel sad that Safta was going back to Israel. And that she embarrassed me so much with my coach. And I said, Ima, I love your support, but please don't ever call my coach again, especially to tell him that Safta is going back to Israel. But on the other hand, it was just another example of how I always had my kosher food. It was my mother, my father, blessed memory, their unconditional love and support. And I think my coach also respected how much Jewish family, Jewish unity, Jewish support, how much our families mean to us. And that is, though, how I kept kosher. There were some times where it was too many days on the road and long trips, and Chabad would meet me and always bring kosher food. And sometimes the rabbi would even stay and watch the game, which was very meaningful for me as well.
You know, the amazing thing about the story with your mother is no one watching with a Jewish mother would be surprised at that story.
Right. You know?
There must have been occasions where your college team actually had to play on Shabbat and you would have to miss the game. Were there occasions like that?
Yeah, so in college it happened one time. It was postseason in the biggest tournament in America, what we call the Big Dance. It happened once, and it happened the biggest game of my life. It came out on a Friday night. And the way that the Big Dance, the tournament works is if you win, you advance. If you lose, the season's over. It's a tournament. I had made an announcement that even though it was the biggest game of my life, I'm not going to play. Came out on a Friday night. You have to understand it was in every newspaper in America announced that I was going to skip this massive game for Shabbos. But I did a little bit of research, and I found out that there was a hotel right across the street from the arena, and that my team was staying in a hotel 20-minute bus ride away from the arena. So I called my coach and I said, hey, coach, I know this is unheard of, especially before such a big game, but can I please separate from the team? I found out that there's a hotel closer. Can I book that hotel room instead of staying with the team? That way, if we win on Friday night, without turning on the TV, I'll know because I could see the fans are happy in the parking lot, and I could play in the championship. We'd advance, and I can play on Saturday night because Shabbos was over at halftime, the second part of the game. I'd be playing the second half of the game. If you lose, the season's over. I'll get a ride back to Maryland somehow. The fans are sad. I know we lost. Just please let me know if I could book the hotel. He says, go for it. I called my father, blessed memory, and I told him what happened. He said, you know what, Tamir, I'm so tired of you on the road by yourself, spending Shabbos by yourself. I'm going to close my office down, and I'm going to meet you out there. Friday afternoon, a taxi pulls up, and my father, blessed memory, shows up with kosher food. And I was so excited to spend Shabbos with him. I haven't seen him in so long, and I wouldn't have to be by myself. So we start Friday night. We daven in our room, and then we were just about to make Kiddush. We hear a knock on the door of the hotel room. And I thought to myself originally that maybe it was going to be another Jewish person. Someone saw us. We could invite them in for Shabbos. But when I heard the knock on the door, I told my father, let me see what it is. I went to open up the door. I was completely shocked to see it wasn't another Jewish person. It was actually my entire team. They stopped the team bus and they said, Tamir, we couldn't go back to the hotel without letting you know first. We won the game for you tonight. We won the game for Shabbos. We respect so much that you didn't play tonight. This one's for you. We'll see you in the championship tomorrow night. And that was the greatest sports moment of my life because these superstar basketball players just won the biggest game of their life. They have to get ready for the next game. They have to eat and get rest, but yet they went out of their way to find me and find my hotel room and tell me that they dedicated the win to me. And that was the greatest sports moment of my life.
Amazing and moving story. But after what, 18 months at college, you swap coaches, things start to go a little awry. Tell us what happened and how you landed up in Israel.
Yeah, so the coach who helped me for Shabbos, Coach Jazz Kolsky, ultimately got fired. Till today, we don't know why. They brought in a new coach, to make a long story short, who was not able to accommodate me. Some really challenging things happened to me, and I realized that it was going to be safer for me to not continue playing at Towson University. And I got the phone call from a very, very famous coach, Coach David Blatt, who was the first Israeli to ever coach in the NBA. And he said, we read about you. We've been following your career. What do you think about coming to play in Israel as a professional basketball player? And you have to understand, when I was in 7th grade, we had a yearbook, and everyone got to write what they want to be when they grow up. Most of the kids wrote doctors, lawyers, rabbis. I wrote, I want to be a professional basketball player in Israel. when I grow up. That's my dream in life. And when I got that phone call, I said, Coach, yes, it's exactly what I want to do. So I took the opportunity. I signed a 3-year contract with Maccabi Tel Aviv. The first clause in my contract was that I would not have to play on Shabbat. Ultimately, I played 7 years professionally here in this beautiful country. I met my wife, Judy, here, who shared the same story as me. She was an outstanding athlete that would not compete on Shabbat. We now have 5 kids. I served in the IDF, in the Israeli Defense Forces. I was awarded Chayal Mitzdayen, Outstanding Soldier Award in my unit. And now I work for the professional team here in Jerusalem. I have a sports consulting company that helps Israeli sports tech startups. And I have a basketball camp and to do a lot of clinics and consulting for NBA players and coaches around the world. And I've also invented a device that's now being used in the NBA called Zone 190. I invented sports strings tzitzit, special tzitzit for athletes and soldiers. And my wife and I were blessed to write a book together about the spiritual side of basketball. And here I am on my Mirpeset in Jerusalem. And I'm very thankful to hopefully get to meet some more of your community as well, if anyone has any questions.
I think we'll get on to questions in another 2 or 3 minutes, but let's just talk about, in Israel, basketball is huge. Maccabi Tel Aviv is a European name when it comes to the issue of basketball, but your career is plagued with injuries. It's a very strenuous, very hard game, particularly on the knees. What happens to you?
Yeah, so my knee suffered a tremendous injury after another injury, after surgery, after another surgery, after another surgery, to the point where I couldn't barely walk without pain anymore. And I was forced to retire in 2009 due to the knee injuries. And I decided that I was going to take everything that I learned from my career and try to turn it into something more positive instead of just a career-ending knee injury. And you know, I grew up very close to Chabad. I was blessed to visit the Lubavitcher Rebbe 4 times as a kid. I was at the Lag BaOmer parades. I was very inspired by him and his teachings throughout my entire journey. And I decided that after this devastating news of my knee injury, I was going to fly to New York and go to the Rebbe's go to the Rebbe's resting place. And after I left, my prayer, which was basically to ask to continue to make Kiddush Hashem through basketball, and saying that they were writing bad things about me in the newspapers in Israel and my knee injury and everything that I had gone through, I walked halfway down the block out of the cemetery. And for some reason, I just thought to myself, I can't leave. I need to go back in there. And when I went back into the Rebbe's, to the resting place, there's a TV screen that plays videos of the Rebbe and how the Rebbe met with people and answered their questions. And as soon as I walked in there, there was a family from Israel, Avner Shaki and Nechama Shaki. Avner Shaki was a Chaver Knesset. And they basically asked the Rebbe the same exact question that I was asking. He was going through a challenging time in politics, and he said, hey, they're writing bad things about me in the paper. I'm trying to make a Kiddush Hashem, and I'm unable to, and I'm having all these challenges, which is exactly my question. And as soon as they asked that, the Rebbe's answer to them was, your situation, it's like an athlete. Sometimes athletes go backwards before they go forwards. And I applied that message to my life. Yeah, I may have suffered a knee injury, but I need to figure out a way to come back better than ever. And even if it's not physically, it may be spiritually. And that's why I got all the dedication from that moment to come back better than ever and to continue to try to do good things through basketball. And everything I do till today, the coaching, the products, the inspiring, coaching special needs kids, every single day involved in chesed and basketball, it's all from that message of Yeridah L'Torah Aliyah that the Rebbe gave them that I applied to my life. And sometimes in life we get knocked down, but that's also the greatest opportunity for us to jump even higher.
So Tamir, one of the things that you actually do is work with African kids, refugee kids in Israel. Many of them have walked from the Sudan looking for a better life. We've landed up there. Tell us a little about how you got involved with the refugee kids and what you're doing with them.
Yeah, correct. Like I said, I grew up with my Savta was a Holocaust survivor, and I heard horror stories of people trying to escape Europe and countries not letting them in. So when we found out that there was 5,000 Sudanese kids in Tel Aviv looking to find a better life, I have a basketball mentorship program that I run called Hoops for Kids, which is after-school basketball and life skills for underprivileged children. And we have programming throughout Israel. in residential homes and underprivileged areas. And then when we heard about the Sudanese kids, we said we have to figure out a way to help them out. And I'm so glad to say that we raised the money for them. Their season's starting in about 2 weeks. We're having 2 programs for Sudanese kids where they could learn to dream big through basketball. Right now, the way that the culture is set up for them is that at a young age, they need to help financially with their families. So they wash dishes at restaurants, they clean staircases, and it's really hard for them to break the cycle. And we're going to try to teach them and give them the basketball skills and life skills to dream big, you know, to think that they could be entrepreneurs, to think that they could do anything they want in this world, and do all of that through the language of basketball.
So talk to us for 1 minute about what basketball can do just in uniting people generally, whether it's refugees, religious, non-religious, Jewish, non-Jewish. Talk about sport as a unifying factor in finding the humanity in all of us.
Correct. I think that's one of the holiest things of sport is that I don't know if there's ever been another platform that it's proved itself to unite people more than sports. You know, I'm an Orthodox Jew that graduated from Verdami African American Christian School, roomed with a Muslim player in college, and then played with players from all over the world. Until today, these guys are closer than brothers to me. They come over to Jerusalem in the summer to help me with my basketball camp. And I think that there's just an unbelievable amount of good that could come out through sport. And I think that's one of the main reasons Hashem brought my soul down to this world, uniting people through sport. And that's something that I'm involved in on a daily basis.
The last question I'm going to ask before we open it up to everyone to hopefully ask some interesting questions, or much more interesting questions, is I see, in fact, for the Shabbos Project, which is a project that originated in South Africa with our Chief Rabbi Warren Goldstein, I see you were, in fact, one of the people who appeared on the campaign keeping it together. Did you know about the South African link when you did it?
Yeah, I heard about it. Everybody's heard about it. That's an amazing project, and it's really everybody in the the South African community, just, you know, everyone outside of the South African American community and the South African community are blown away by this project. And when they called me about it, I just felt so humbled and honored, and glad to be part of the project. And till today, I can't believe that I was able to be part of that. So very thankful for the opportunity.
Well, Iti, I've asked all the questions that I've wanted to ask, but I'm sure we've got many people who are watching who want to ask questions as well. So maybe people can identify themselves by sticking on their cameras. If you want to ask a question, and put up your hand or wave at Iti, she'll unmute you. And let's have a discussion with Tamir and actually understand a little more about him.
I'm going to come in, Howard, and thank you so much, Rabbi Chazan, and thank you so much for the enthusiastic interaction that you've had with Tamir. And thank you, Tamir, for touching hearts and souls. Your story is so real. But I've had a few questions that have come to me already. One of them is that it's all okay for somebody who's as talented and top of the world as you are, Tamir. But what about the average guys, like the normal, regular people who are not blessed with such talents? So how do we, regular people, manifest our place in this world and find our way forward? I'll ask you another one, and then maybe
let's do one at a time. Because all right, first of all, thank you guys. Thank you. I love all of you guys. Thank you. I feel honored to be part of your community. So, you know, basketball teaches, like, everyone has their role on the team, and you just can't win the game without everyone's role. It's like we're all piece of a puzzle, and if one piece is missing, the puzzle is absolutely incomplete. So I think that there is no such thing as a simple person. If Hashem is investing in us trillions and trillions of cells every single second, that means that we have a unique mission in this world, and that we could do things in a way that no one else could do the way that we could do it. Otherwise, Hashem wouldn't be investing in us, and we don't need to prove that to anyone else if Hashem's already proving that within ourselves. So we should never think of ourselves as like a simple person. You know, everyone's piece of puzzle is the same important, because if it's missing, then it's incomplete. So if it's one person needs to make a shot on the basketball court, that's one thing. If it's one person teaching somebody Aleph Bet, if it's one person that smiled to somebody else on the street today that otherwise no one else would have ever smiled to them, it's all the same level of greatness. and it's all connected. And I could even say that some of the greatest things that happened to me in my career didn't happen because of big things, big shots, or big plays. It happened because of small things, a smile here, a smile there, a shalom aleichem, helping someone. It's all one big mission, and we're all in this together. And no one person is greater or less great than someone else. We all have a part of Hashem within us, and it's about going after reaching our potential with a lot of happiness and a lot of fortitude and a lot of resilience and a lot of simcha and healthy confidence. If that could help.
It was so beautiful, Tamir, and appropriate for this week, because the Parshat HaShavua is Atem Netzavim Hayom Kulchem, and Hashem says, all of you, the water drawers and the wood choppers and the leaders, we all play a role. And what you've just touched is the chord of realizing how we stand before Hashem, every single one of us, so meaningful and so important. The next question that I've just received relates to the fact that life, as you've described, is made up of moments, like the moment that you were recognized and that you were chosen, and the moment that you so with all of those moments that brought to greatness, and then moments that caused so much difficulty, when you look back at your life, do you lie in bed thinking, I wish I could have done that differently, like if that day hadn't happened, if I'd just done things differently, my life would be different? Do you look back with regrets, thinking about how you might have done things differently from the way that you did do them?
Well, look, the way I see it, or the way that I've learned and what I truly believe is that, like, Hashem could have been all by himself. Hashem had the perfect world before all of this, but with tremendous self-sacrifice, Hashem lowered himself to have a relationship with us, a partnership with us. And that partnership is the most important thing in the world. And when you have a partnership and a relationship that's based on love, then you realize that, like, every single thing that happens along the way, good, bad, it's all connected to growth. And, obviously I made a lot of mistakes in my life. Obviously, we're all challenged every single day. We're all trying to refine ourselves, especially this time of year. But we need to remind ourselves that it's all based on love. Hashem lowered himself for this relationship. And good, bad, it looks good, it doesn't look good, it's all part of us reaching our potential for this partnership. So I think every single thing is divinely ordained. And I think when we look back in our lives, we could, always attach it to positivity and growth. Like, okay, I messed up here, I messed up there, but ultimately I could have grown through that. And if it wouldn't have been through that, I probably wouldn't have reached my potential and where I am today. So those are the type of thoughts that I try to remind myself, and I try to do it in a positive way. Even especially, I've been working on it so much today, like just thinking about the positivity and relationship and everything I do, trying to do it with Hashem in a positive and meaningful way, and not in a way that's like, God forbid, Hashem's out to get me. I did this, so Hashem's gonna hurt me, or Hashem's gonna lower me, or do this and this. Because if Hashem would have had that thought process, why would he invested him so much in coming down to have that relationship with us? That doesn't make sense. So I'm not a rabbi, but these are some of the things that I think about.
So again, to me, it speaks to all of us today, because all of us around the world are dealing with this pandemic that has changed our lives and changed their lives in dramatic ways. And people talk about either surviving it or pulling through. And what you've just spoken about is the fact that it's from Hashem, and Hashem wants something positive to emerge. And if we read all of the challenging moments as opportunities for growth, we can come out of this with so many newfound talents, abilities, focuses, ideas, because we went through the challenge that we might not have ever reached for had we not been through the challenge in the first place. So, I personally have a question, and that is, I just think it would be beautiful to share. I heard the story about you and the member of Knesset Shaki, and how you heard the words that sometimes we go down to go up. But there was a second part to that story. Do you want to just tell how that story came full circle?
Yeah, the second part, it kind of just happened again a little bit. But basically, the second part was when I finally emerged, and I was so inspired by the story, I figured that I would call Mrs. Shaki to tell her what happened, because this story, like, inspired me so much. It inspired me through rehab. It inspired me through breaking the odds. It realigned my mission in life, you know, and taught me that, you know, there's growth that isn't only physically. It's Yeridat Tzorcha that could also be for something spiritual. So I called her up and she said, Tamir Goodman, the basketball player, why are you calling me? So I told her what happened, and she started crying over the phone. And she told me in Hebrew, Ba'ali achshav niftar, my husband just passed away, and I just got done asking Hashem, please give me a sign, shakoach shel Ba'ali adayin ba'olam, that my husband's koach, his strength, is still in the world, and you're calling me to telling me this story. It was on Chaf Beis Shvat, the Rebbitzin's yahrzeit, that I saw, you know, that she was involved in some of the projects and stuff going on in Ramat Aviv. So she was having a haskara for her husband, an evening dedicated to her husband, and I didn't even know that he passed away. And she invited me to come to her house and say the story. And I came to her house, and she showed me the actual tickets that the Rebbe paid for her, the plane tickets for them to come to give them that bracha. And she said that, look how many years after she said in Hebrew, it's like a wheel that keeps going and going and going and going. It doesn't stop. And the Rebbe gave them a lot of svarim and stuff. And she said, I just want you to know that everything the Rebbe told my husband, it came into fruition. He was having such a hard time. They were giving him a hard time in the paper and then the Knesset, but eventually he came out on top and he was able to make a huge Kiddush Hashem. And that really inspired me. And not long after that, my son was born, Matanel. And she came to the bris, and she said the whole story over. And just a few weeks ago, we had his bar mitzvah, Baruch Hashem, and I made sure to invite her. I made sure to invite her again, but unfortunately, because of the situation, she wasn't able to. But she was definitely with us spiritually.
Unbelievable, Tamir. I'm going back to you, Howard. Maybe you can elicit from the crowd some of these questions that have not reached.
Absolutely. So if you would like to ask a question, please wave or turn on your camera or let us know in the chat section that you're available to ask a question. And we'd love you to have a conversation with Tamir as well. As you can see, despite the fact that he's actually really famous, he is the most approachable human being you've ever met. But Tamir, as people ask the questions, or hopefully ask us some questions, just I see, for example, on YouTube, there are interviews between you and Yair Lapid, who of course describes you as a gingy, as I did. I took that from him. And as I was excusing myself from another webinar that's taking place at the moment on the Iron Dome, I said, please excuse me, I have to go speak to Tamir Goodman. And the person who is called Nati Dinar says, Tamir Goodman, I spoke to him a few weeks ago about setting up college basketball leagues in the US, in Israel for kids that are coming out of the army. So the name is synonymous with basketball. In previous generations, maybe it was Tal Brody, who was the name that everyone knew in basketball in Israel. Who are the big names now that we should look out for besides for Tamir Goodman?
Well, this is the first time in history right now that two Israeli players have entered the NBA draft, Deni Avdia and Yamadar. And this is, I could tell you that there's such a buzz in the basketball world, in the NBA and in Israel, that for such a small country to have two players entering the draft is just so exciting. And it's amazing what's going on. I mean, I don't know if you saw yesterday what happened with the baseball player. Did you see that?
No, tell us.
The first baseball player for the Orioles, they beat the Yankees, the New York Yankees, the Baltimore Orioles, and it was a Jewish Israeli pitcher for the first time ever. And they interviewed him after the game, and he said some words in Hebrew. He said that he was happy to pitch so well in Hebrew, and that he misses his family. And I miss my family in Israel. I mean, it's such unprecedented times that we're living in. You see Omri Caspi putting on tefillin. It's just like, I couldn't have even imagined this as a kid, and it's right before our eyes now. So hopefully everyone will continue doing it and continue to inspire the next generation of players and athletes.
So Tamir, Khani is asking about your kids and whether they play basketball at all.
Yeah, so we've been blessed with 5 kids, Baruch Hashem. 5 amazing kids. I can't thank Hashem enough for them. 1 out of the 5 I say has made basketball his direction in life. His name is Matanel, and I'm very, very proud
He's
of
the one
him.
who just had his bar mitzvah.
Just had his bar mitzvah, yeah. And this exactly 1 year ago from today, I said, Matanel, for your bar mitzvah trip, I promised him we were going to go to an NBA training facility. I said, when he was 12, do you want to go now in September, or do you want to wait until you're really 13 and then we'll do your bar mitzvah trip? So he said, we want to go now. So we went when he was 12, exactly 1 year ago. And thank God we did, because he got a chance to shoot on an NBA floor and go in an NBA locker room and do things that probably, not sure if that be able to, people will be able to do that again for a very long time. So I'm thankful to Hashem that we got to experience that together. It was an unforgettable father-son trip, but I can't thank Hashem enough for all my kids, and proud of Matanel very much for what he's able to accomplish on the court. And he makes a really big Kiddush Hashem out there, and he's a really good sportsmanship. I'm very proud of him. Thankful to Hashem for him.
So another question that's come in wants to know how tall you are. And I've seen a video of you and Shaq together, and you are tiny in comparison.
Yeah, and the Jewish, I'm 6'3.5". For basketball, that's very short. When I walk on the streets here, you know, like when I drop my kids off at school, they laugh and they say, they tell my kids, your father's so tall. But they don't realize, like, in my world, I'm really the shortest. So I'm just, in basketball terms, I'm small and short. And walking around the streets here, people think I'm tall.
So Barry Jankelowitz says, hi Tamir, do you keep in touch with the Muslim basketball player, I think his name was Muhammad, who was your roommate?
Yeah, I talk to Muhammad all the time. I love him, very dear friend, as are all my teammates. I'm in touch with them all the time and thankful for the relationships. That's one of the most amazing things about basketball, is the relationships you forge with your teammates. It lasts forever. You know, it's even now, like this just happened. There's a Jewish organization in America that a Jewish kid passed away, and every year they do a basketball tournament in their merit. But this year the tournament was canceled. So instead they're asking basketball players to take a shot and spread around the media, around social media, about this Tzedakah Foundation. So what do? They get me involved. I tag my non-Jewish players who are huge basketball people with huge audiences, and within seconds they all write back, I'm in. And they do it, and they support a Jewish cause and this cause to help spread awareness about cancer. And the reason they do it is because the relationships that you have in basketball are relationships that will last forever.
So talking about these relationships that last forever, I feel like the relationship between Arshul in Johannesburg and yourself may last forever as well. Eliyahu, was that you putting up your hand for a question? Okay, let's unmute Eliyahu Sasson.
Hi, Tamir. Thank you so much for your. Good to see you. Thank you so much for your beautiful words.
Yeah.
I want to share.
He's Canadian, so you don't have to be that nice to him.
Well, if it were true that I were Canadian, but I'm not even Canadian, Howie, so you didn't even get it right.
I was close. McGill University. Yeah.
I want to share, not a question, but a comment, a memory with Tamir from quite a long time ago. You may not remember, Tamir.
I remember.
Oh, hey. Years ago, I used to go to a camp called Camp Ramah. And Tamir, to give you a little bit of background, I'm part of this community, the Great Park community, which is one of the communities that's online now. And people do have some awareness of a bit of my history, a bit of my background. And at this camp that I went to, you may remember, I remember we once prepared for Tisha B'Av together, drinking Gatorade. And one of the events that happened at this camp was they had their Friday night tefillah by the lake. At the bottom of the mountain, there was an outside Beit Midrash, they would call it. And the year that Tamir came to do a basketball camp there, I had started on my journey of becoming more religious. And one of the challenges this is a camp that I went to for 12 years. And I knew everyone and I was friends with everyone. But one of the challenges that I faced was that I started to do a different kind of tefillah from everyone else. And I didn't necessarily feel so comfortable praying where everyone else was praying. So I told Tamir that I started praying in the back. Everyone would sit on the benches facing the lake, and I would sit behind everyone. I would pray behind everyone so that I could do my own thing. And as Tamir, as you were speaking tonight, you reminded me of what you told me then. Instead of praying behind them, pray in front of them, and then they'll all be inspired by your prayer. So just to share that story with everyone, and thank you very much for your words of inspiration tonight.
I love you, man. Good to see you, my friend. Great to see you again, and I'm so proud of you, and you should have a Shana Tova and only good news.
And you, Tamir. Thank you.
Well, Tamir, I know we've run out of time. To many, basketball is a true religion, but it's amazing to see a man of faith who is so inspired and so inspiring and has used his talents to inspire so many others. So I want to hand over back to Rabbi Dovid Chazdan, the rabbi of our shul, just for our last few words of inspiration. And I want to thank you tonight for what really has been the most amazing, remarkable evening. Shana Tova to you and your entire family. We look forward to seeing you in Johannesburg if we don't see you in Jerusalem first.
Amen. Thank you, Howie. Thank you. You're a legend for conducting the interview. Tamir, maybe just to end off and thank you. I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for touching heart and soul and connecting with a better part inside of all of us that yearns to grow and to develop and to realize the best of ourselves. We're standing just before Rosh Hashanah, a very different Rosh Hashanah in South Africa. We're going to be in shuls. There's a maximum of 50 people davening in one place. Our shul holds probably 750 when it's full, plus the kids. So we're having multiple services in different venues and isolated from each other. Tremendous precautions to make sure that we are able to pray and daven whilst we are protecting ourselves from the dangers. So we're going through a very, very challenging, difficult entry into Rosh Hashanah. Maybe leave us with your blessings for a year ahead and how we can hope and aspire to have a year filled with all the good things ahead.
Yeah, well, one of my favorite stories of the Torah is when Yaakov was fighting the angel when they were crossing the river. And after they were fighting all night long, Yaakov says to the angel, well, can you bless me? And that doesn't really make sense. Like, imagine if we're like in a fist fight with somebody all night long, punching each other. And then when the fight's over, you say to the person, hey, can you give me a blessing? Like, why did he do that? And Yaakov understood that, like, it didn't make sense that to go through all those challenges and all those negative experience, that whole long fight, if there wasn't some type of blessing that was going to come out of it, you know, something good had to come from all these terrible challenges, whole fight that happened all night long. And that's like a story that I remind myself of all the time. So my first blessing is that there should be no challenges anymore. But if there already are the challenges out here, they're only sent because there is some type of new blessing on the way. So we just ask Hashem that new blessing should come in as speedily and as strongly as possible, that it should wipe away any darkness, because they say that the new light comes in on Rosh Hashanah that's never been into the world. So hopefully this light will be lighter than ever, and it'll give everybody those exact specific blessings that they need to wash away any of the pain or any of the sadness.
Amen. 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 Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, for joining us tonight. I'm just going to remind everybody that there is a session with Rabbi Simpson just prior to Rosh Hashanah next Wednesday night in anticipation of Rosh Hashanah. Instructional, going through the Machzor, learning about the prayers, and then again the Wednesday night before Yom Kippur. Also the bookings for these varieties of different services taking place right now. Please register and online and do all the things that you need to do. Please, let's get ready physically, spiritually. Please, God, let's take the message from Tamir and grow. Thank you, everyone. K'tiva v'chatima tova.
Shana Tova. Toda Rabba.
Shana Tova.
Thank you, Howie.